Leaders today have more information than ever. We have books, we have podcasts, we have trainings, we have content, we have everything. And yet, I am telling you, yet we are still not being transformed. We are still not seeing the real transformation with everything that we have at our disposal. Tonight, discussing difference between learning and growing. This is a 30. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to the 30. Thanks for joining me on another episode of this valuable space. This is a space for meaningful conversation designed to support personal, professional, and leadership growth. The 30 is a production of the Jackman Group, LLC. We are a training and development firm focused on developing leaders, helping teams to be more efficient, effective, and also assisting organizations with their strategic plans. Tonight, we are starting a new series, and this series is called The Leadership Gaps. The Leadership Gaps. Let's start with one gap that I see not often, but I see it a lot. And that one gap I've seen is affecting a lot of leaders right now. And that is the gap between information and transformation. As you heard me say, we have access to a lot of information. Leaders today, we are not lacking in accessing or getting the information that we need. We have AI, we have books, we have podcasts like this one, we have trainings, we go to seminars, there are videos on YouTube and everything else, there are quotes, there's content everywhere, there's social media, there's information overload. Sometimes there is too much information, so everywhere we turn, there's information that we can access at our fingertips. There's Google, there's Gemini, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, oh my gosh, sometimes it becomes too much. But yet as leaders, a lot of leaders are not changing. As leaders, sometimes we're learning, but we're not transforming. Folks, there's a difference between learning and transforming. We're consuming, but not growing in the ways that matter most. We're consuming lots and lots of information. We're always on our phones or on laptops or computer or tablets. We are consuming lots and lots of information, but we're not transforming. So that gap is what we're talking about tonight, the gap between information and transformation. because that's what we should be focusing on, not so much the information, but the transformation. Because one of the biggest mistakes leaders make is assuming that information automatically produces growth. And I had a discussion this week. We kicked off our Impact Leaders Spring 2026 Leadership Development Experience. So we kicked that off this week, and we had a great discussion around information and how we can access information. But are we growing from the information that we receive? And that's the foundation of this particular series, right? That's the foundation of this episode, is the gap between information and transformation, because it's not automatic. Information is valuable, extremely valuable. That's one of the reasons we do this program, to provide you with information. But our goal is just not to provide you with information. Our hope and our goal is that the information that you have, that you can take it and be transformed. So information is valuable. It can expose us to new ideas and new thoughts. It can be challenging. It challenges our thinking. It can give us language, what we've been sensing. It can open up our eyes. It can help us to become more aware. But information by itself does not transform us as leaders. Just because we've heard it, just because we've seen it, just because we've read it, doesn't mean that we've applied it. Just because you know it doesn't mean that you become it. And just because we read it doesn't mean that we understand it. See, some leaders have a lot of knowledge. I've met some brilliant leaders, from extremely knowledgeable leaders in my time, but very little real change. Some of them have great insight, great knowledge, great understanding, but some of them, with that, they're not truly transformed, going from where they are to where they desire to be and where they should be. So that's where we want to talk about. That's what this particular episode is about. See, some leaders can explain leadership principles. They can quote the right ideas. They can write things down. They can speak things, right? They can talk about it. They can communicate it. They can communicate the culture. They can be holding others accountable. They can build trust. They can create vision and mission. But when the pressure rises, when relationships get hard, when decisions get heavy, when people disappoint them, they go right back to the old habits that they had. They go right back to the old place that they were previously. They go back to saying the same things, to speaking the same things. It's the old, back to the old, as opposed to moving forward and being transformed. And that's exactly how we know information has not yet become transformation. Because when we're challenged, we tend to go back, right? We tend to pick up the same old habits. And that's a perfect example that we can say we're not yet transformed. That when things get challenging, when things get hard, when relationships are challenged, we tend to fall back. And that's a great example to realize that we are not yet transformed. So the question becomes, what keeps leaders stuck there? What keeps them stuck from in the old and not moving into being transformed? Well, I'm going to tell you some of the reasons. I've done a little bit of research on it. And here's what I've found. I found number one is this. Some leaders are always receiving, but rarely are they reflecting. I'll say that again. Some leaders are always receiving, but rarely are they reflecting. They're not taking the time to reflect in what was said and what was done. They keep moving from one idea to the next, one event to the next, one podcast to the next, one training to the next, one seminar to the next. But they never slow down to ask this valuable and very important question. What is this showing me about me? So if you keep jumping from one to the next, here, there, everywhere, and you don't take the time to slow down and reflect on the question, what is this showing me about me? What actually needs to change in how I lead? If you've never taken the time to reflect on those questions, or the question, what needs to be practiced, not just admired? If you've never taken the time to reflect on those questions, are you truly transformed? And I will argue that you are not truly transformed. Another reason is this. Information often feels productive. We as leaders, sometimes we have so much information. We've taken in and received so much that sometimes we misplace that for being productive. See, listening feels good. Reading feels great. Attending even feels better. It gives the impression that growth is happening. And that's a false impression. Others may perceive, because we go from a seminar and we let people know, hey, I'm going to this training. And then we say, okay, I'm going to the next training. I'm going to this seminar. I'm going to this conference. And we keep going and going and going and going. And we're making a great impression. But is growth taking place? Are we growing? Are we taking the time between sessions, between conferences, between receiving? Are we taking the time to reflect on some of those questions that I asked? See, growth is not just about exposure. If it was, we would be growing tremendously. We would be at the point where we have achieved everything. But it's not just about exposure. Neither is growth about engagement. And then there's this. Some leaders want content because content is safe. We can't get enough content. We just say, give me more, give me more, give me more. Because we think it is safe. We think if we have more than enough content, that we become transformed, that our mindset changes. Folks, I'm here to tell you, content can inspire you without confronting you. I'll say that again. Content, right? This content that I'm giving you now may inspire you, but it may not confront you. So my hope as you listen and you watch this episode, that not only are you inspired, but you're being challenged by it. That you're being challenged to take the next step. That you're being challenged to take time to reflect on what you are receiving. That you don't jump from one to the next, right? See, content can also inspire you without demanding anything from you. because it's content. It can make you feel like you're moving without ever requiring you to change. So the challenge, the requirement to grow and change is not a bad thing. It's a great thing because it helps us to close that gap, the gap from where we are to where we desire to be. And whenever we come across a gap, our goal is to close that gap. That's what this is all about, is how do we close the gap from information to transformation? See, if we continue receiving and accepting content, going from one to the next, one seminar, one conference, we may be informed, but we may be stuck in the same old patterns because our mindset has not changed. We may think that we have changed because we have information, but if our mindset has not shifted, I dare to say we cannot be transformed. So information is one thing. Transformation should be our desired goal and outcome. That's where we should desire to live. So if information is not enough, I'm going to talk about next about what actually closes the gap. Because if we have identified a gap or gaps, our responsibility is to take action and closing that gap so that we can move from information to transformation. So if we never take action, true intentional action, we will always be consumed by information and never achieve transformation. So what can we do as leaders to close the gap? I'm going to give you a couple of things here. Number one, transformation requires more than content. It requires intention. We have to be intentional in reaching that point, to the point of transformation. It requires intention. It requires reflection. So we need to take time, slow down to the point where we can reflect, set aside some time, some space for us to reflect on where to go next. What should we be doing? What actions can we apply? What is our goal, our strategy, our action steps in order to move from information to transformation? So transformation requires intention. It requires reflection. It requires application. They're just saying, I can give you as much information as you want. I tell our leaders this all the time. Those that I have the privilege to both teach or train and coach, or those leaders that I have the privilege and the honor to actually mentor, those that I develop, that I have to serve, leader I serve. I tell them this: information is information, but the key is application. That's the key. When we receive information, how do we apply that information? The application is the thing that takes us from the information phase to the transformation phase. So transformation requires application. It requires accountability, and it requires feedback, because we are so focused, we may not see the blind spots. So we always want to solicit feedback from others, honest and candid feedback, not the kind of feedback that makes us feel good, but the kind of feedback that is honest and candid, that speaks about what are you doing well and what are some areas of opportunity, and allow you to come up with a plan to close those areas of opportunity, to close those gaps that may exist. So transformation requires these things. Transformation also requires the right environment. That's one of the reasons, folks, that leadership development matters so much. That's one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about leadership development, helping others. Because transformation does not usually happen in a vacuum, and it does not happen in isolation. It happens when leaders are stretched. You know, one of my favorite quotes, you've heard me say this over and over again: growth happens when you, the leader, or you, the person, make the decision to get out of your comfort zone. If we are in our comfort zone, we're not growing. But when we make the decision to step out of our comfort zone, growth can take place. When we are stretched beyond our comfort zone, we grow. Transformation takes place. It also happens when blind spots are exposed. Remember, I talked about just now about the feedback, right? Feedback, when we receive feedback from others, not constructive, or I hear these two words all the time: constructive criticism. There is no such thing, folks. There's constructive feedback. So when we receive constructive feedback about our blind spots, when our blind spots are exposed and we take action to remove those blind spots, then transformation can take place. Transformation happens when someone asks the hard question. I know sometimes we don't like the hard questions. We don't like to be challenged. We don't like to be asked the difficult questions. We hate the person, or not hate is a strong word. We may dislike the person who asks the difficult or the hard questions. But that helps us to grow. That helps us to really be stretched. So if we always take things easy, take this, right? This is easy. We live in a society where everything has to be easy and convenient. We don't like things challenging us. We don't like people to challenge us. We don't like people to ask us the hard questions. We don't like to wait. We want things right now. What I call the microwave mentality, or the microwave society. We want it right now. But some things happen when we wait. So when we are asked the hard questions, it allows us to be stretched and allows us to think. And that's okay. So transformation happens when someone asks the hard question. It happens when there is structure around growth. And transformation is not just learning something new. It is allowing what we've learned to actually reshape how we think, how we lead, how we communicate, how we handle people, and how we respond under pressure. And folks, that's a totally different kind of growth. And that's exactly why the environment happens, right? That's exactly why we decide to move forward with the Jackman Group and developing and creating impact leaders. That's exactly why we do this, the 30. That's exactly one of the reasons why we teach and train and coach and develop leaders. That's exactly why we care so deeply about leaders and leadership. That's one of the things that we do at the Jackman Group. And we do that through our Impact Leaders training. We do that Impact Leaders coaching, whether it is executive coaching or group coaching. Helping leaders move beyond information and into transformation. Because content alone is not enough. Leaders need the right environment. Leaders need to be around other leaders so that we can challenge each other. We also need the right type of conversations. We need to be challenged. We need reflection, taking time to reflect. And we also need the space to practice and apply what we've learned. This week, we kicked off, as I said, we kicked off Impact Leaders Spring 2026 Leadership Development Experience. And I challenge those leaders that are attending this experience, this program, 5 weeks, 1 day a week. And I challenge them each week to reflect on something they've learned. One thing that they have learned that was profound, that stretched them. Reflect on that one thing. And the week, between weeks, I challenge them to apply it. I challenge them to start practicing it, to put it into practice. And then when we come back the following week, we'll talk about it and talk about their experience. So I'm challenging them, they're challenging me. Part of what they're challenging me is as their facilitator is to show up, right? I have to make sure that I am on point. Not to say that I'm perfect, because I'm far from. Not to say that I know it all, because I don't. But the same with they're learning from each other, I'm learning from them, they're learning from me. So I have to come in prepared and equipped to talk about the content, give them the information, but also challenge them to apply what they've learned so that they can move from information to transformation. And that's what it's all about, folks. That's why we do the things that we do. So not only are we going through this currently with our leadership experience, but in the coming months, we're going to be talking about more things that we'll do, because we're all about developing leaders, developing teams. So whether you are not-for-profit, government, for-profit, education, ministry, wherever you are, whatever segment you are in, we want the opportunity to partner with you. If you are a business owner or you are CEO of an organization, if you lead a team of thousands or you lead a team of one, we'd like the opportunity to partner with you and your team. So in the coming months, we're going to be talking about the things that we will offer in late spring, summer, and fall. Because as the Jackman Group, we want to help you. And we're utilizing this platform of the 30 to help you, the viewer and the listener, give you the information, but also challenge you to apply what you have learned. And we hope that you are doing that. That's my hope. And that is my prayer. Because development is not just about hearing something helpful. It's about being in the rooms that help you to grow. So I challenge you to get into a room where there's growth. Don't be the smartest person in the room. I was talking to someone on yesterday. We talked about smart people. We talked about brilliant people in rooms. If you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to get into a room, another room where you're challenged. So as we prepare to close, as we normally do, here's our reflection segment for you. I'll leave you with a couple of questions on this episode of the 30. Where in your leadership journey do you see the biggest gap between information and transformation? Where in your leadership journey do you see the biggest gap between information and transformation? That's number one. And what are you mostly consuming? Or are you really changing? Are you collecting ideas? I want you to think about those things. Think about that. Think about your journey and think about what are you doing? Is it transformation? Is it information? What type of information are you collecting that is stopping you from growing? Because there is a difference between, as I said, information and transformation. Big difference. So as we close, I'll leave you with this. Information can start the process, but transformation is what actually changes you, the leader. Folks, I want to thank you for being here. I hope this was helpful. Let's continue to change and be transformed. We'll continue this series. We have another episode, part 2 of this series, The Leadership Gap. And I hope and pray that this will help change you as a leader or as a person. So as we close, may God bless you. May God bless your family. I want to thank you for being here again. We'll see you next week of the 30.